Hi friends, welcome to today's English speaking conversation practice. My name's Kayla. I teach natural English phrases and natural English vocabulary to you in these YouTube lessons. Today's English conversation is all about what it's like to go to a car dealership, the place where they sell cars, and buy a car. Today's conversation will have 3 different parts and you'll get tons of speaking practice. I know it can be challenging to find an English speaking partner, so I make these lessons so you feel like you can get actual speaking practice. The first part of this conversation is all about entering a car dealership. I will be role A, I'll be the person that's entering the car dealership. You will be role B, the person that's selling cars. After we have this first part of the conversation, I'll teach you the natural English vocabulary. It will be like you're actually in an English class with me, and then we'll switch roles. I will be role B, and then you will be role A. You'll have a chance to practice 3 parts of this English conversation. So let's get started. Hey, who runs the show at this dealership? Well, I'm in the market for a new vehicle, but I'm not going to buy it today. I'm just here to look and then I need to sleep on it. I'm intrigued by that. Show me what you have to offer. Great job in the first part of today's conversation. Like always, I now have a vocabulary lesson to teach you the natural English phrases that we just used. The first phrase that I want to teach you is run the show, or I said, who runs the show around here? This means who is the boss, who is making decisions. If you walk into a business and say, hey, who runs the show here? You are asking who is the person that is the manager or in charge. The next phrase that I used in the conversation is in the market. When you are in the market for something, it means you are searching for something to buy. So in this conversation, I was obviously in the market to buy a car. You could be in the market for a new pair of shoes. You could be in the market to buy a new house. You can be in the market for almost anything. If you want to say that you're interested in buying something, in a category, you can use the phrase, I'm in the market for. When you say that you need to sleep on something, it means that you need to take time to make an important decision. You should definitely take time to make your decision in buying a car. A car is a huge purchase. It's very expensive. Any expensive purchase, you're going to want to sleep on the decision. That means you need to at least take one day, one sleep before you make your final decision. And the funny part about this conversation is a lot of times in the United States, you go to a car dealership and they give a lot of pressure for you to buy a car right away, when it's really such a big decision and you should take lots of time to think about it. In this conversation, you said, I can get you one for a steal. You were talking about a car. When you say that something is a steal, you're actually not talking about theft. You're just saying that it's such a good deal, or the price that the item costs is so low that it's a really good deal. It's like you're stealing it. It's like you're getting it for free, even though it's obviously legal and we're not committing a crime. So if you want to say that you got a really good deal on something that you purchased, you could say it was a steal. And again, it doesn't mean that it's illegal, it just means that it feels like you stole it because it was such a good deal. Now is your opportunity to practice the other role in this conversation. So I will be role B and you will be role A. So you'll begin speaking first, and let's get started on practicing the other side of this conversation. That's me. I'm in charge. What can I help you find today? Listen, we have some really great cars available and I can get you one for a steal. Great, right this way. Now it's time to move on to conversation part number 2. And I like to title this conversation, Taking the Civic for a Test Drive. Now I'm gonna explain 2 things to you before we begin this part of the conversation. A very popular car in the United States, which is like a middle of the road car, and by this I don't mean it's a luxury car and I don't mean it's a bad car, I just mean it's a very middle class car is a Honda Civic. I personally like these types of cars. They're very reliable, they get great gas mileage. So we're going to talk about buying a Honda Civic in this lesson. Let me know if you've ever driven a Honda Civic in the comments. And when you go to a car dealership in the United States, you can actually take the cars for a test drive. If you're very interested in purchasing the car, you're going to want to test it first. You're going to want to take it for a short drive so that you can make sure that you like the way it works. You like the way it feels when you drive it. So we're going to pretend that I just took a Honda Civic at the car dealership for a test drive, and our conversation in this part is going to be all about that. So I'll be role A and you be role B. Let's get started. I loved the feel of the Honda Civic, but do you have any used ones? I'm intimidated at the thought of buying a new car. I would definitely have to get financing then. I'm still leaning towards buying a used one outright. I don't really want to mess with getting a loan. So this part of the conversation is very interesting because we're talking about money and we're talking about the way that we buy things in the United States. Let me explain some of this vocabulary that was used so that you can understand this process better. And if you're ever in finance or if you ever are buying something in the United States, this lesson will help you a lot as well. So first of all, I said I love the feel of a Honda Civic. We use this phrase to talk about what it feels like to drive the car. And this can be anything from we like the smell of the car, we like the way the car drives, we like the speed it can go, we like the feel of it. This phrase kind of goes along with anything that you could buy, like shoes. I like the feel of these shoes, I like the feel of this shirt, I like the feel of this house, I like the feel of this room, I like the feel of this car. It just means you like everything about it. You like the way that it looks and the way that it feels. Now, I want to talk about this concept of new cars and used cars. I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a new car versus a used car. We can buy a new car and they're much more expensive than a used car, one that's been driven for a few years and then someone sells to you or someone sells to a dealership and then you buy it from the dealership. I typically buy used cars because they're a better deal, but sometimes if I've bought a used car, I will say I got a new car, even though I just mean it's new to me. So in this conversation, the car dealer is trying to get the other person to buy a new car, of course, because they're going to make much more money. But if you're just asking my opinion, it's always better to buy a used car. If you are intimidated by something, or someone, it means you're kind of scared of it or you're scared of the person. In this conversation, I said I was intimidated by buying a new car because it costs so much money. It kind of scares me to spend that much money. If you are intimidated by a person, it might be because they are very successful or they're very intense and you just feel like they would judge you and think less of you. If you say that you are intimidated by something, you're scared of it. Now, the process of buying a car, usually people don't have enough money to buy a new car in the United States, and you almost have to have a car unless you live in a city with lots of public transportation, because Americans really rely on cars to get around. We live in suburbs many times and things are far, you can't walk, and we don't have the best public transportation. So in order to buy a car, if you don't have enough money, you need to get financing. Now this means that you need a bank or another institution to give you a loan or to give you money that you'll pay back over many months or a couple years. In this conversation, I said I don't want to mess with getting a loan. That means I just don't want to be bothered by it. It's a complicated process sometimes, so I'd rather just buy something that I can afford. I use the phrase, I'm leaning towards buying a used car. That means I haven't made my final decision yet, but if I had to tell you now, it would probably be buying a used car. When you're leaning towards something, just picture that you're gonna go that way probably. You're leaning there, but you haven't gone that way yet. So you haven't made your final decision if you're just leaning towards one of the options. The last phrase that I want to teach you that I think is very useful is to say paid in full. And again, this goes with kind of the idea of getting a loan. If you get a loan, you haven't paid in full. You've only paid part of it. If you pay in full, it means you give the person all of the money and whatever you're buying is yours now because you don't have any payments to make and you don't owe anyone money. So if you can pay for a car in full, that's great because then you don't have to get financing or a loan and you don't have to make payments every month. Let's switch roles now in the conversation. I will be role B and you will be role A. You'll speak first. Here we go. I do, but I think you are really going to want to buy new. Don't worry, I'm sure we could get you approved for a loan today if you don't have the cash. All right, let's get you paid in full and you can drive the Civic off the lot today. Excellent job. I'm so glad that you've made it through the first two conversations today. We have our third part of the conversation coming up next. And this part of the conversation is all about the final purchase of the car. A stereotype in the United States is that car dealers are a little bit sketchy. By this, I mean they will kind of lie sometimes to get you to buy a car. They'll make it seem like it's better than it is. Because car dealers can get paid based off a commission, so if you buy the car, they get paid more. Now, of course, all car dealers are not like this. Most are probably very honest. But you want to keep this in mind when buying a car and be very wary of what the car dealer tells you. Make sure to do your own research and think about your decisions very carefully before you make a purchase. I will be role A in this conversation. You will be role B. Let's get started. All right, I've signed and initialed this entire form. I'm ready to get the keys. What? You didn't tell me about this. I still would have appreciated you being more forthcoming about it. Yikes. Like I told you, I tried to make this a realistic conversation, so you might run into some sketchy things when you buy a car. Again, do your research and make sure you know exactly what you're buying, because in this conversation, I did not know that there was repairs that needed to be done on the car. Let's talk about all this vocabulary. There's tons of new phrases in this part of the conversation. I said that I had signed and initialed the paperwork. Now, many times when you're making a very large purchase, like a car or a house, you have to sign tons of paperwork. The last time I bought a car, I had to keep signing, initialing, and when you sign something, it's obviously your signature, and when you initial it, it's the first letter of your first name and last name, so you'll give 2 letters on the line. So many formal purchases or large purchases require you to sign and initial something. We talk about a car needing repairs, and this means that there's things that are broken or damaged on the car. If your car needs repairs, sometimes it means that you can't even drive the car. In this case, it was just a minor repair. And the repair that was needed in this imaginary conversation was the blinker. Now, in the United States, sometimes we call this a turn signal, sometimes we call it a blinker. I almost always call it a blinker. I know in the United Kingdom, they call this an indicator, or I believe they do. Again, I'm not British, so I don't know for sure. Let me know in the comments if that is true, if you're aware of what they call this. But just in this conversation, a blinker might be a minor repair, but you would not want to buy a car that needs a repair right away, because that might make you worry that there's more things that are needed to be repaired on the car. The car dealer in this conversation said there will be no charge for something. I've taught the phrase on the house before, and that means that whatever business you're getting something from will pay for the cost of whatever you're getting. But you can also say there's no charge today. That means it will not cost you any money. Now there are a few ways to use this word forthcoming. It's a very advanced English word. I think it's very useful and I like to use it in conversation because it's just a nice word. Forthcoming means you're revealing information. If you are not forthcoming, it means you're being secretive. And it possibly means you're being dishonest by not revealing information. So if someone is not forthcoming, they are being dishonest. And if someone is forthcoming, they are very honest and they let you know all of the information you need to know about something up front. So like I said, sometimes car dealers get the reputation of not being forthcoming or not being honest. Like in this example conversation, they did not tell you there was a repair that needed to be done before you had purchased the car. The last phrase that you have to know when talking about cars in English is a smooth ride. Now you can use this phrase in other areas of conversation as well. But when we talk about having a smooth ride for a car, it just means the car drives really well. There's no damage to the car. It's not very old. So if you buy a used Honda Civic that's maybe just 1 or 2 years old, it's going to be a smooth ride, especially if you have good tires on the car and there's no damage. Sometimes if we're going to have an easy time doing things in life, we can say it's going to be a smooth ride. All right, time to practice the last part of our conversation. I will be role B, I'll be the car dealer, and you will be role A, the purchaser of the car. Let's get started. You speak first. Just one thing I forgot to mention. This particular Civic you just purchased needs one repair. Just something minor with the blinker. We will fix it for you before you leave today, no charge. Don't worry, everything else about the car is great. You are going to have a smooth ride home today. Superb job in today's English conversation. I hope you enjoyed this speaking lesson and the vocabulary that was taught in today's lesson. If you want more speaking practice exactly like this, you can go and watch any of these lessons on screen. I think that they're very helpful for actually getting speaking practice. I know that's the hardest part about learning English, especially when you don't have a tutor or in-person English classes. Thanks again for watching. I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel and give this video a like. Let me know in the comments your favorite phrase that you learned from today's conversation. And I'll see you in the next English lesson. Thanks for watching.